There is a deep misunderstanding that many people carry in their hearts, the belief that they must become qualified enough before God can use them. We think once we gain more knowledge, more confidence, more resources, or more approval, then God will finally move. But God has never waited for human qualification to begin a divine work. From the very beginning of Scripture, God consistently chose people who looked unprepared, untrained, and unworthy in the eyes of others, and then revealed his power through them. Human systems are built on credentials. They ask where you studied, who trained you, who endorsed you, and how long you have been doing what you do. But God operates on a higher system, one rooted in purpose and sovereignty. When God speaks a plan over your life, he is not limited by what you lack. He already knows every weakness, every gap, every limitation, and he still chooses you. That choice alone is proof that your qualifications were never the deciding factor. When God calls you, he is not looking for perfection. He is looking for surrender. He is not asking if you know everything. He is asking if you trust him enough to follow. Many people miss their moment of elevation because they disqualify themselves before God ever does. They step back, hesitate, or remain silent, but believing they are not ready while heaven is already moving in their direction. God's plans succeed not because the vessel is strong, but because the power flowing through it is divine. If God only used the qualified, no one would ever be used. It is precisely your lack that makes room for his glory. When you arrive at a place you never qualified for, it becomes undeniable that God's hand carried you there. No one can point to your race. They can only point to his grace. So stop measuring yourself by human standards when you are living under divine appointment. Stop waiting to feel ready when God has already spoken. The moment God decides to move in your life, your qualifications become secondary and his authority becomes final. God has a pattern that confuses human logic. He consistently chooses the people least expected to succeed so that his power can be clearly seen. When God selects the unlikely, he removes every possibility of human credit and leaves room only for divine glory. The world looks for strength, confidence, popularity, and proven success, but God looks for hearts that are available, humble, and teachable. The unlikely are often overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. They are the ones people pass by, question, or quietly count out. Yet these are the very people God delights in lifting. Not because they are perfect, but because their lives become living evidence that what is happening cannot be explained by talent alone. When God elevates the unlikely, the focus shifts from the person to the power behind them. Being unlikely often means you have walked through rejection, obscurity, and misunderstanding. You know what it feels like to be ignored, doubted, or told you don't belong. But those experiences shape a depth of humility and dependence on God that success alone could never produce. God trusts the unlikely because they know where they came from and who carried them through. When God uses the unlikely, it disrupts pride and silences comparison. No one can say you planned this, manipulated this, or forced this door open. The elevation becomes a testimony, not a performance. People may ask how you got there, but the only honest answer is that God made a way where there was no clear path. God's glory shines brightest in lives that once seemed ordinary, broken, or overlooked. Your story becomes a reminder that does not need ideal conditions to do extraordinary things. He only needs permission. There is a difference between being certified by people and being called by God. Human credentials can open certain doors, but divine calling opens doors no one can shut. When God places a calling on your life, it carries a weight that no certificate, title, or recommendation can ever match. Credentials may impress people, but calling commands destiny. A calling is not something you earn. It is something you receive. It is God's intentional decision to involve you in his purpose. Long before you understood it, long before others recognized it, God had already marked you. This is why some people rise into roles they never chased and stand in places they never applied for. They are not there because of approval from man, but because of assignment from heaven. Human credentials depend on consistency, performance, and validation. Divine calling depends on obedience and trust. People may question your experience, your age, your background, or your past, but they cannot question the authority of God's call once it begins to manifest. When God calls, he also carries the responsibility of sustaining what he started. Many people struggle because they try to validate their calling through human applause. They seek confirmation from those who do not have the authority to approve what God already ordained. But when you understand divine calling, you stop chasing permission and start walking in purpose. You move with confidence, not arrogance, knowing that if God assigned you, he will also back you. A calling will often place you in uncomfortable spaces where your credentials feel small. That discomfort is not a sign of failure, it is evidence of growth. God intentionally stretches you beyond what you know so you will depend on who he is. In those moments, you realize that it was never your right summit that qualified you. It was God's voice. When divine calling is at work, it silences doubt, overrules opposition, and outlasts criticism. People may not understand how you arrived, but in time, they will recognize why you stayed. In a world that rewards self-promotion, constant exposure, and loud confidence, humility often feels invisible and overlooked. Many believe that if they are not seen, they will never be chosen. But God operates differently. God does not promote those who advertise themselves the loudest. He promotes those who remain faithful when no one is watching. Visibility may attract attention, but humility attracts God. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking less about yourself. It is the quiet strength to serve without applause, to obey without recognition, and to remain consistent even when credit goes to someone else. God watches how you handle hidden seasons because those seasons reveal your true heart. What you do in private matters more to God than what you display in public. Some people chase platforms before they develop character. And when promotion comes too early, it exposes immaturity. God, however, allows humility to mature you before he elevates you. He waits until pride has been stripped away, until dependence on him is deep, and until your identity is rooted in purpose rather than praise. Hidden seasons are not wasted seasons. They are preparation rooms. While it may feel like nothing is happening, God is shaping your motives, refining your attitude, and teaching you how to handle influence without being controlled by it. When God finally lifts you, you will not be intoxicated by attention because your confidence was built in obscurity. When promotion comes from God, it does not need announcing. God knows how to reveal you at the right time to the right people for the right reason. And when he does, it will be clear that your elevation was not forced. It was earned through humility. One of the strongest weapons the enemy uses is the memory of your past. Not to remind you of where you came from, but to convince you that you can never rise beyond it. Many people carry guilt, regret, and shame as silent barriers, believing that what they did, what they survived, or what they failed to do has permanently disqualified them from God's best. But God never consults your past to determine your future. He redeems it. Your past may explain your pain, but it does not define your purpose. God sees your life as a complete picture, not as broken fragments. He knew every mistake before it happened, every wrong turn before you took it, and every failure before you faced it, and he still chose you. That choice alone proves that your past does not have the authority you think it does. God is a redeemer, not a record keeper. He does not replay your failures the way people do. What you regret, God reshapes. What you thought ruined you, God repurposes. Even the seasons you wish you could erase become tools in his hands, building wisdom, compassion, endurance, and discernment that you could not have gained any other way. Often, the very areas of your greatest struggle become the places of your greatest impact. Your testimony carries weight because it is real. Your voice carries authority because you have lived what you speak. God turns scars into signs, not of weakness, but of survival and transformation. When God lifts you, he is not ignoring your past. He is proving his power over you. Your future is not canceled by where you've been. It is shaped by the grace that carried you through. Effort is important. Discipline, consistency, and hard work matter. But there are moments in life when effort reaches its limit and still cannot produce the breakthrough you need. This is where favor steps in. Favor is the invisible hand of God opening doors that effort alone could never unlock. It is God placing you in the right place at the right time before you even realize what is happening. Many people work tirelessly and still remain stuck, while others move forward with ease that seems unexplainable. This does not mean effort is useless. It means effort without favor can only go so far. Favor accelerates what effort prepares. It shortens seasons, bypasses obstacles, and introduces you to opportunities you did not qualify for on paper. God's favor does not ignore your effort. It crowns it. When favor rests on your life, people begin to notice you without you chasing attention. Opportunities come looking for you. Conversations shift in your favor. Decisions are made behind closed doors that work for your good. It is not manipulation or luck, it is divine influence. Favor also removes pressure. You stop striving to prove yourself because God is already advocating for you. Where you once struggled for approval, favor causes hearts to lean towards you. Where you expected resistance, God creates cooperation. You realize that what felt heavy before now flows with grace. When God lifts you through favor, it becomes clear that you did not climb there by strength alone. And that realization keeps you humble, grateful, and dependent on the same God whose favor brought you there. Rejection often feels like a closed door, a final answer, or a sign that you were never meant to move forward. It carries pain, confusion, and self-doubt, making you question your worth and direction. But in God's plan, rejection is not always a refusal. It is often a redirection. What feels like denial may actually be preparation for something greater. God allows rejection because he sees what you cannot yet see. Some doors close because the environment behind them would limit you, shrink you, or distract you from your purpose. God protects you by removing you from places where you would have settled instead of risen. What you thought was loss was actually God preserving you for something better aligned with his plan. Rejection also builds strength. It teaches you resilience, patience, and endurance. It forces you to develop faith. Validation is absent and confidence when support is scarce. Without rejection, character remains untested. God uses these moments to deepen your dependence on him rather than on people's approval. Often rejection sharpens clarity. It reveals who is truly for you and what no longer serves your growth. It strips away false identity and pushes you to discover who you are apart from acceptance. In those moments of isolation, God speaks most clearly, reshaping your vision and strengthening your resolve. When God finally opens the right door, you realize the rejected ones were never meant to work. You were not rejected because you lacked value. You were rejected because the season, the space, or the people could not contain what God was preparing to release through you. Fear is one of the most common reactions when God is about to lift you into a place you never imagined. It sneaks in quietly, whispering doubts. Am I ready? What if I fail? Oh, who am I to handle this? These feelings are normal, and in fact, they often signal that something significant is about to happen. Fear tends to rise not to stop you, but because God is preparing to stretch you beyond your comfort zone, and growth is never comfortable. Elevation requires stepping into the unknown, leaving behind familiarity, and trusting God with outcomes that you cannot control. When fear shows up, it is a test of faith. It asks whether you will remain paralyzed by what you don't know, or whether you will move forward relying on God's promise. Those who succeed in divine promotion are not the ones who never feel fear. They are the ones who move forward despite it. Fear also highlights your dependence on God. When you step into new territory, your own skills, knowledge, or experience may feel insufficient. This is intentional. God wants your confidence to rest in Him, not in your past successes or personal abilities. When fear rises, it points you back to prayer, faith, and reliance on His guidance, reinforcing that He is the source of your strength. Moreover, fear before elevation helps to refine character. It tests patience, humility, and courage. It distinguishes those who are ready to lead from those who are ready to quit. When you feel fear, it is often an opportunity to confront your doubts, reaffirm your faith, and align your heart with God's purpose. Finally, when you walk through fear with faith, the breakthrough becomes even more profound. The very fear that seemed like a warning becomes proof of God's power. The discomfort, anxiety, and trembling you felt transform into testimony, showing others that God can lift anyone, even those who feel completely unqualified. Fear is not a signal to retreat. It is the precursor to elevation. One of the ways God stretches faith is by placing people into assignments before they feel fully ready. Human logic says preparation must come first and positioning later, but God often reverses the order. He positions you according to purpose, then equips you through the process. This is why many divine opportunities feel overwhelming at first. You're standing in a place you did not train for, facing responsibilities you did not expect. God does this intentionally so that your confidence does not rest in your ability, but in His presence. If you felt completely prepared, you might rely on yourself, but when you feel stretched, unsure, and dependent, you stay close to God. Every challenge becomes a classroom, and every demand becomes a lesson designed to grow you. As you walk in obedience, God releases wisdom step by step. He gives insight for today, strength for now, and clarity for the next move, not the whole picture at once. This keeps you walking by faith instead of sight. You learn while doing, mature while serving, and gain strength while standing in the role God gave you. God's equipping often comes through pressure. The very responsibilities that intimidate you force growth. You develop skills you never thought you had, discernment you never practiced, and courage you never needed before. What once felt impossible slowly becomes manageable because God is building capacity within you. When God equips you after positioning you, the transformation is undeniable. You are no longer the same person who first stepped into the assignment. You grow into the role, shaped by grace, sustained by faith, and strengthened by God's continual guidance. There are seasons in life when you will feel inadequate, unprepared, or underqualified. You may face responsibilities that seem far beyond your abilities, challenges that appear insurmountable, or expectations that feel impossible to meet. In those moments, it is not your skill, education, or experience that will carry you forward. It is God's grace. Grace is the supernatural enablement that bridges the gap between human limitation and divine expectation. Grace is not just a concept, it is power in action. It is what allows ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. It is what sustains you when pressure mounts, when knowledge falls short, and when obstacles appear too large. Grace does not replace effort, but it magnifies it. Where your natural ability ends, grace begins, making what seemed impossible suddenly attainable. The greatest leaders in Scripture were not chosen because they were the most skilled, the most articulate, or the most experienced. Moses stuttered, David was the youngest, and Peter doubted. Yet God's grace flowed through them, accomplishing feats that their own ability could never have produced. Grace is what allows God to lift the unlikely, equip the unprepared, and position the overlooked for divine success. Grace also gives confidence in the unknown. When God calls you to a place you never thought you could reach, it is grace that steadies your heart, sharpens your mind, and empowers your actions. It allows you to move forward without fear, knowing that God's presence compensates for what you lack. Where skill fails, grace sustains. Where effort struggles, grace multiplies. And where qualifications are absent, grace ensures that God's plan for your life is fulfilled. It is the invisible force that carries you into rooms you never imagined, equips you for tasks you never trained for, and enables you to shine in ways the world cannot explain. Grace is the proof that divine power can always fill the gaps that human ability cannot reach. One of the greatest traps you can fall into is allowing the opinions of others to determine your sense of worth, direction, or destiny. People will question, criticize, or doubt your calling. They may focus on your mistakes, your background, or the fact that you seem unprepared for the opportunity in front of you. But here is the truth. As human approval is temporary, limited, and often flawed, while God's approval is eternal, unshakable, and perfectly aligned with your purpose. When God lifts you where you never qualified, the world may not understand your rise. Friends may become distant, colleagues may resent you, and critics may loudly question why you are where you are. If you base your confidence on their perception, you will constantly live in fear, seeking validation from the wrong source. But when your heart is anchored in God's approval, the opinions of people become irrelevant. They cannot undo what heaven has ordained. God's approval is not given because of perfection, popularity, or performance. It is granted because of obedience, faithfulness, and alignment with His will. You may feel unqualified in your own eyes, but when God says, no earthly judgment can cancel the divine endorsement. Approval from man can be withdrawn at any moment, but God's favor endures forever. Learning to prioritize God's approval over people's opinions also protects you from distraction. The world may try to pull you off course with criticism, praise, or comparison, but when your focus is on pleasing God, you move with confidence and clarity. You no longer have to explain yourself to everyone or seek their permission to walk in purpose. Finally, God's approval brings peace where human judgment brings pressure. When you rest in His endorsement, fear, anxiety, and insecurity lose their power. You understand that elevation is not about being accepted by the world. It's about being aligned with heaven. God's approval is the ultimate validation, the only one that truly matters, and it is the foundation for every breakthrough, promotion, and assignment He gives. Many people rely on talent, skill, or cleverness to advance in life. They study, practice, and prepare, believing that success is earned through ability alone. While talent is important, it has limits. Talent can impress people, but it cannot move heaven. God's system operates differently. Obedience, not skill, opens doors that talent could never unlock. Obedience is the key that activates God's favor and aligns you with divine timing. Obedience often requires humility and trust. It may ask you to step into situations where you feel unqualified, to say yes when it seems risky, or to act before you fully understand the outcome. Unlike talent, which relies on what you already know, obedience relies on faith in what God has promised. It is stepping forward even when the path is unclear, knowing that God's instructions are greater than human logic. The Bible is filled with examples of obedience opening impossible doors. Noah obeyed God's command to build a massive ark long before it rained. And his obedience saved not only his family, but also the future of man. Abraham obeyed God, so leave his call to leave his home and step into the unknown. And his obedience positioned him as the father of nations. Joseph obeyed even in prison and later rose to prominence in Pharaoh's court. In each case, talent alone would not have been enough. Obedience was the activating force. Obedience also positions you for supernatural favor. When you choose to follow God's instruction, even in small things, you demonstrate trust and loyalty. This attracts God's attention and opens doors that no amount of preparation, skill, or networking could ever provide. It is obedience that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary testimonies. Talent can take you far, but it cannot replace the authority that obedience carries. Obedience aligns you with God's plan, ensures His provision, and prepares you to handle the elevation He has in store. When you consistently choose to obey, even when it seems inconvenient or uncomfortable, you create a pathway for God to lift you into places you never imagined. rooms you could never qualify for on your own, and opportunities that only His favor can sustain. So today, I want you to hear this loud and clear. God is not limited by your eyes, your past, or your skill set. He sees your potential, even when you doubt it. He knows your purpose, even when the world cannot see it. And He is ready to lift you to heights you never thought possible, to doors you never imagined opening, and to opportunities you never qualified for. Do not let fear, doubt, or the opinions of others hold you back. Do not let your past define your future, and do not let your lack convince you that God cannot use you. What feels impossible to you is just the space where God's power is about to be revealed. Step forward in faith. Step forward in obedience. Just step forward knowing that His grace will fill the gaps. His favor will go before you, and His presence will sustain you. Every limitation you see, every I can't, every closed door, God is bigger. He is your strength, your guide, and your promotion. Remember, elevation does not come to those who are merely qualified. It comes to those who are called, humble, faithful, and willing to trust God's process. So lift your head, stretch out your hands, and prepare your heart, because God is about to place you where you never qualified to do what only He can accomplish through you. Your assignment is not to understand how it will happen. Your assignment is to believe, obey, and step into it. And when you do, the world will see that it was never about your ability. It was always about God's power working in you. There are moments in life when you look at your race, your background, your mistakes, your lack of connections, and you quietly conclude, I don't qualify. You didn't come from the right family. You don't have the right education. You don't have the money, the influence, or the title. But here is the truth that will change everything. God has never depended on human qualifications to fulfill divine purpose. God specializes in lifting people into rooms they never trained for, positions they never applied for, and blessings they never thought possible. When God decides to elevate you, your history cannot stop Him, your limitations cannot block Him, and your critics cannot veto Him. The world promotes based on credentials, but God promotes based on calling. People look at experience, but God looks at obedience. Man asks, are you qualified? God asks, are you willing? So, some of the greatest breakthroughs happen not because you were prepared by systems, but because you were prepared by process. God used the pain, the rejection, the waiting, and the unseen seasons to shape you for a level you didn't even know was coming.